Today, we're going to talk about the best decks in the game right now, the new cards that came out with the last patch and their meta impact, some standard and eternal changes, and, of course, the controversy about the new Emporium shop. I'm Snnuy, and with me I have Marshall from the LOR Report. How are you doing, Marshall?
I'm doing very well, Snnuy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to start off this new podcast, which I guess we should just introduce about what it is. Every podcast has a bit of a theme and a gimmick. And I guess ours is we are the Runeterra podcast without name right now. And the gimmick is we're going to upload these podcasts exactly 1 week after every patch. So the most exciting thing about card games are, of course, like the patches. It's like Christmas Day every time. So we want to upload 1 week after a patch goes live to give you all the news, all the updates. And that's what we're going to keep doing. So every 4 weeks, you can expect a new episode. We're just going to get you up to speed with that.
Hopefully going to keep you filled in on what decks are doing well as of the day we record. They're always going to be the decks that come out after the patch. So we can have a bit of speculation onto what might be good going into the future, but it's mainly going to be what is good as of right now.
Exactly. And, both of us, I'd say we're pretty good at the game. I mean, I'm good when I play memes. You're good when you play Demacia. We're not like at the top of the ladder. We're not top 10 players. We just love Runeterra. We hit Master every season. So that's the perspective you're going to get from this podcast. But just to jump right in, I'm pretty excited about talking about the new cards and what they've done for the game, because I think this variety set was a lot better than the last two. But to start off with, let's just talk about the best decks in the game right now. I'm already on their leaderboard. And what has surprised you, Marshall? What's the thing that's caught you off guard? What did you not expect?
So it's probably two things. So we've got Aelin and we've got Cosmic Call. I didn't think Cosmic Call would see that much play. Like, yes, it's a good card, and I was like, I felt like there could have been a thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, we're not gonna, we'll see it in certain decks. But I think the fact that we're also in Eternal, this deck has just blown me out of the water from how much it has been played recently.
So this is also, like, I'm already getting ahead of things, but this is where, like, the last variety patch had me worried, because we would get 10 new cards, and, well, except, like, maybe 1 or 2, like, Condense for sure, right? Condense had a meta impact, and the rest not so much. But what really just blew me away is that almost every variety card this time felt like it actually had a real chance to do something. And yeah, Cosmic Call is like the big one. 8 mana do nothing is what I thought, but it is really, like, if we just look at the leaderboard right here, it's all Targon. Like, it's just all kinds of different flavors of Targon. So that is definitely, like, the standout for me as well.
It's one of the things. So I was watching a Margin video before, and he decided to throw in the Starry Scamp, the card that costs 0. And he was like, hey, when you play Cosmic Call, you're tapping out of all your mana normally. It's like, there is decks like Bar that have the downsides of, okay, I'm going to play a big thing that's normally going to warp how the game is played, but I'm tapping myself out of the mana for that turn. Champion Strength was the same thing. I'm going to spend all of my mana to this really good effect, and if you have an answer to it, it kind of just, like, stops the game, and Cosmic Call does that. It's 8 mana. Every Celestial is half the cost now, and the cards that you're playing with the discount, they're very good when they're halved, especially when you're looking at the main one being Living Legends.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be really enjoying 5 mana Living Legends. Yeah,
I love Invoke. It's been my favorite archetype pretty much since Targon came out. It started as Bilgewater being my favorite region because of the RNG and, like, the random effect, the risk and reward. But then Targon came out and it was like invoking space stuff, and, like, the whole aesthetic was just beautiful to me. It was, like, by far my favorite release. So to see them very good and then very bad for almost 2 years, and then now somehow be very good because of an 8 mana card is something I wouldn't have expected. But it's also some of the eternal changes, like the let's see, let me just pull up, like, one of the list. I personally really like the Samira one, because, that was like one of the first videos I uploaded to YouTube. But Mountain Scryer getting +1/+1, Giddy Sparkleologist getting +1/+1, Fangs getting 1 attack. It's actually, and Startip Peak is another really big one. I think this might actually be, like, together with the Scryer, that might be the biggest change. So to see all of this make it a real deck in Eternal is really exciting to me, and I'm happy to get to play with that for a month. And this is what I wanted from the other variety Eternal seasons as well. Because that's again, like, as a content creator, that's the perspective I'm talking from every time. I uploaded like that video a while ago, which was like, yeah, I don't enjoy the Eternal season because it's just Nasus, Poppy, Draven. It's just aggro. My meme decks can't compete. But this time, the variety cards actually feel good enough to create content and still have fun in this format without getting blown out by aggro every single time. This deck can be pretty aggressive because of the way Samira functions with it, especially with the Starry Scamp. I think this is really smart. This is a card I didn't play with Samira, but it just helps her level. And that's fantastic. That's kind of why Samira is here, right? Everything is so cheap. So he just levels and then you rally with your elusives. I love this deck so much. But let's move on. Well, unless you have anything else to say about this, I'm also gonna try to look at other decks, but I think that is the main one.
That is the main one, and the only thing I want to say is it's very cool to see an archetype that is really only playable in Eternal.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we've come to Eternal, this is where this deck should shine, and it is. I suspect that when we go to Standard, you might see the odd Cosmic Call deck, but I don't think it will be meta-defining as it is here. I mean, it's cool. I'm not a massive fan of Eternal, but it's cool that when you come to Eternal, you're not just playing the same decks that are strong in Standard, but stronger because they've got Eternal cards. It's like, hey, you're playing it in entirely different against an entirely different deck now.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the main thing. Invokes have been rotated in such a way that their early game is just non-existent anymore in Standard, and I think that's fair. I think that was probably necessary, and that might also be the reason why they printed Cosmic Call. Is like, hey, if we want to release this card, maybe there is like a Targon champion that works with Invokes. We can't have this Zoe early value around to keep it a little bit more fair. But now that we get to experience it in Eternal, I think is beautiful, and really all I could ask for from an Eternal season. Again, I can't really judge this fairly, so I'm gonna ask for your opinion on this. Last time, I was like, okay, I didn't enjoy Nasus Slay decks in their prime. I didn't enjoy Poppy decks in their prime. I know you probably did because you played Demacia. So now I get to experience a deck that I really enjoy in its prime, like it's even like it got even more power in the form of an actual new card. Is that like, am I just being lame? That's like, you got to play your decks and that sucked for me. Now I get to play my deck. Is that like, am I just being like just a hypocrite, or I don't know?
No, I see. I think if the deck was also viable in Standard, it would be an issue. But the fact is you can't play this in Standard, it's like, hey, this deck's good for the month that people are going to be caring about, because as much as people want to say, I think Eternal only is cared about during the month its ranked is on. And it's like, hey, like I said, you're playing it for a month.
Yeah.
It's strong for a month, and you've only got to play one open if you're playing opens. If not, go the decks that are playing once a month.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what it's supposed to be about, right? But the worry for me, again, was that these variety cards were just going to be completely overshadowed because we're going to a different format with a higher power level. So it's likely that new cards for Standard that are likely for archetypes that were good in the, well, that weren't so good in the past might not see play because, yeah, the decks that are there are just so much more powerful. But, for a month, that's fine. You can still play Standard if you really want to. The rank ladder is still there. Now, I saw that video you uploaded on the LOR report Twitter with the 4 most played decks. So I think we should probably keep it to those and maybe find like one more that's seeing a lot of play on ladder right now. And I think this was either the first or the second. You probably know. What was the play rate of this one? Was it the most?
The first one was Timelines. No surprise there.
Ah, okay.
The second one was Akshan Samira. Third one, I don't remember, but I know the fourth one was Vladimir and Braum.
The third one is
we will get on to.
Right?
Yes, it was Invoke. It was Zoe Samira.
Okay.
No, that was the second one. So now we're on the third one.
Ah, okay, got it. All right, we'll get to the other ones later. Do you think that Invoke is actually the most played, but because there's like such a split between champions and stuff that it might not show up as the first? Because there's the Aphelios Zoe with Shadow Isle. There's the one with Samira and Noxus. There's some with Victor and Piltover. Is that like kind of like?
I can see that being the thing. If you probably just like picked any Zoe deck, because I think the Invoke deck really uses Zoe, so you just pick what decks are using Zoe, and then just add up all the play rates there. You're probably looking at a higher play rate than Timelines. I think Timelines was 8%. Wasn't that high actually?
Right. Yeah. So this one is third then. Samira Akshan. I played against this a couple of times. Do you have any experience with this deck? Because I haven't played it personally.
I haven't got experience playing it, but I have a lot of experience playing against it because it's. Honestly, it's not a Demacia deck. I'm not going to play it.
As
But
expected, yeah.
I said this, I really enjoy playing against this deck, mainly because they're all in on the champions. If you kill the champions, they have nothing. Like, what are you doing? So I'm just prioritizing killing the Akshans. Actually, you focus the Samiras and then the Akshans, and then they're not doing anything.
Yeah, no, that is exactly it. It is 100% just like degeneracy from Samira rallies and Akshan just getting value from the Horde, I guess. So that makes sense, but it's not easy killing their champions, man. Like, look at all this stuff they have. They have Right Negation, Quicksand for combat, Shapestone as a 3-of, the Vastaya. That's like the one thing I struggle with. If they like curve Samira or Akshan on 2 into the Swinging Glaive, I feel like I'm already way behind, and I'm not gonna have a good time.
The only card that I've genuinely been enjoying is playing Ude Galio and having Troll Chant. It's like, right, you're losing attack, I'm gaining health. Yes, you have quick attack, and that's normally how to counter formidables. You can't block if you've got quick attack, effectively. It's like, if you're Troll Chanted or if you're Frostbitten, what are you going?
Right. Yeah, but then they have Quicksand against formidables, and then you just cry because you just get a 0 attack unit with some health. That does feel really bad.
Yeah, it's there's definitely decks where, especially like this one, it's do they have the pump spells? So if they play action on 2 and then just attack into a unit that's got bigger health, and you're like, is that because they've got a Prowl? Is that because they've got a Shapestone? It's the mind game as well. A good player would probably never block it.
Yeah.
And then it's when players play this deck and they go against a bad player who just blocks it, and it's like, oh well, they didn't play around the Shapestone, or it's bad to say, but they're not dumb enough to realize that they might have one, and they're baiting it, and then the person that's playing this deck gets beat. But yeah, no, it's I think it's a fun deck. It's definitely a deck that I think should be in the game. I think it's a fun one to play as and play against her.
Yeah, that's fair. So sometimes I don't really appreciate how fast Samira levels in some decks and how like oppressive she can feel if you can't stop her with like the first flare. And as he gets more and more attack, what you said makes sense. I think this is a good deck to have around. I'm glad it's an Eternal deck. It also feels like it's a pretty fair deck to just kind of outpace and like just beat Invokes before they can do their big stuff, because the Samira and Akshan as a 2/2 will probably just beat like the Invoke stuff with one pump spell, and Invoke can't interact with that. They have literally nothing until like the later game, right? In the early game, I think there is 0 removal.
When you're playing against a deck like this, it's basically just hard removal and the hope that they don't have a deny.
Yeah.
But even if you've got hard removal, you don't have an answer to it apart from those. So, like I said, if a deck like this is strong, as long as there's counters in the game that exists, it's fair in my opinion. Looking back at what we had in the last meta where we had Siren Song, there was only one thing you could do, and that was deny, hold for 2 turns, hopes that they played Siren Song. It's like, if that's the only way you can stop the deck, that is miserable, because it forces you into playing a deny on 3.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, what's going on here? But when you have a deck like this, plenty of counters.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. The next deck is a little more like the way Siren Song played. I'm gonna have to go here because I don't know if I can find it on the leaderboard very easily. I mean, I'm just gonna guess it's the first one. Yeah, this one. Timelines. What's left to say about timelines, really? Even at 2 mana, it feels like just too ridiculous, right? It's the interaction between just getting like these really big stats on curve, like way too big. It just completely cannibalizes so many decks. It's like, yeah, if you can't beat my whatever, like the combat cook on 4 that just turns into like a 6/7 on average, sometimes more. If you can't beat that, then I win every single time. And it's also just like, it's basically a burn deck. It's a burn deck that plays bigger units than you and then finishes you off with like Mystic Blowback and Get Excited. It's I don't know. They need so little actual damage from those big units that will always outstat you, and then finish you off with this. I find it so extremely lame that this deck is still around.
It might be a bit of a hot take, but I think this may be one of the least skill-expressive decks there is in the entire game. Because you look at your mulligan in hand, and you go, I don't see timelines, select all cards, look for timelines, and you just keep doing that every game, And you go, okay, what do? I then play a card and I click the unit that has the biggest stats. and then you throw that into combat and you do this next thing. You do the exact same thing the next turn. And then eventually you draw your Get Excited, your blowbacks. You're like, oh, well, you're just dead now. Good luck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The only skill check is, are you smart enough to mulligan for timelines? And yeah, that's just not very hard. Well, is there like a way to nerf timelines? Because in my opinion, the most ridiculous thing that happened in the last patch is that they buffed the Crocolisk. Like, that got fearsome. That is a timeline buff. Like, well, no other deck plays the Ancient Crocolisk. That's the 7/7 that needs to kill 2 units to be played. But if you play a combat cook, it can transform into that. And then you don't have like that drawback where you need to kill 2 units. That now has fearsome instead of no keyword. So it's a timeline buff. Again, nobody likes this deck anymore. It's why is it still here?
So in the patch notes, they specifically said for those bottom, like, there was like 20 changes that were just random. It was like, hey, this card has +1 health. This card has like an extra attack. And everyone looks at them and goes like, okay, what the hell are these changes? And they're not meant to be competitive changes. It was like, oh, if you generate this from like a bar, for example, that you'd be okay playing it, but it's not. It's just a timeline buff. They were like, hey, how do we buff timelines in 2 different Eternal patches? And they're like, all right, we're going to put it to 1 mana. And then in this one, they were like, what if we just buff all of the bad cards that you can roll with timelines, so they're only good cards? And then they're like, but we won't touch timelines. Like, I don't know about that one.
Okay, let's be completely honest, Marshall. And tell me if you agree with this. Anytime a random buff like that happens to either like, oh, here's an extra keyword on an unplayable unit, or here's like 1 extra health on an unplayable unit, all of those buffs, every single time, are Piltover buffs. Every single time. It used to be like Build Spotter is the random region, they make the random unit, but that is now Piltover. So every time you see a unit that was previously bad and will now still be bad in their archetype, it's just like, okay, now it's a little bit better if you generate it with Piltover and so on. That's what that entire section is on the patch. That's just all like, here are some Piltover buffs, and it's just all from all 10 different regions.
Yeah, it's so the one change that I think would be good with this card is you just take the choice away. Maybe you could put it back to 1 mana and you just say timelines. You just transform it into a random unit with the same cost. Maybe make it so it can't give you like ephemeral units, for example. So it's like you didn't hyper low roll. Yeah. But like, at least you're not going, oh look, this unit's a 1/1, this unit's a 1/1, this unit's a 5/5. I'm gonna press the 5/5 one. It's like,
that's hard, man. It's like
full RNG.
This reminds me of that meme. It's like that girl that tries to fit like these shapes into the right hole of like a box. But it's like, just look for the biggest stats and it will always fit through that hole. Oh, the 5/5, yep, no, that goes in there. It doesn't matter what hole it is. I'm just gonna click the 5/5. Oh, this 1/1 might be good in this specific matchup. Nope, still the 5/5. Doesn't matter. I just click the big stats because I don't want to think. I just want to shoot big stuff at the nexus or big units at the nexus and then shoot them with my burn spells. That's the entire deck. It's Eternal. Like, I think it matters less than in the previous Eternal season. There's more decks to play this time around. I'm not super upset by this. I also haven't played against it that many times, so that might be why. But yeah, I hope it's
haven't had that experience. I don't know if people have seen it on my timeline. I was playing Poppy Taric. I had 12 wins, 0 losses. And I queued up, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to see how far I can get this. I queued up into my friend. He was playing timelines. I messaged him. I'm like, why are you playing this deck? I lost. Turn 4, they had a 9/7 scout, and I'm like, what do I do into this? So I play the game out, go into the next game, queue into them again. I'm like, I can't. I'm tilted from the 9/7 last turn. They get a Fearsome Fangs. And I'm like, it's a 6/4 with lifesteal. How can I ever deal with that?
That 3/3 Poppy and 3/5 Taric looking juicy against them.
I surrender. I'm going, okay, I'm not playing Poppy Taric. I've just lost. My 12-0 win streak has been over by one guy who I lose to twice. Go to play different decks for about 30 minutes. I come back, play 2 games, 2 timelines players. I'm like, I can't play Poppy Taric and not run into this deck.
It's such a hard counter too. Like, they just have bigger set. There's nothing you can do. Both of you play units on curve, but theirs is just bigger.
Exactly.
Miserable. I did like, this is the last thing I'm gonna say about the timelines. It's the nerf that was suggested the most, as far as I can remember. It's the next 2 or 3 units transform. I think that is a good nerf, but because then like additional copies aren't completely worthless. I like that. I think that is very good and opens up like a lot more counterplay.
Yeah, I think just on this final bit, if you do that, you probably could put it back to 1 mana.
Yeah.
Which is fine because it means that they don't want to do it with the low-cost units as often, because then they're relying on it for like the forecourt. Like Combat Cook is the best one. Combat Cook and the Final President are the two best hits.
Yeah.
So they want to save them for those cards. So you'd probably see it be played on turn 3. But then at least you could develop a board a bit and maybe have a chance of finding a way to deal with the deck.
Yeah, you're not already dealing with like the Piltover Castaway that attunes and gets a weapon and is a like 3/4 plus the weapon. Yeah, that's fair. I like that. So the last deck was Vladimir Braum. Now we're talking about the decks that are the most played. The 3 decks that we talked about, like the Timelines, Invoke, and Samir Akshan, I think those are the 3 best decks to play right now. Maybe there is some standard stuff, like we see like the odd Echo Jinx that sometimes is in like the top 3. Surprisingly, no Heimer Jace, which is very good in standard. But this deck is the 4th most played, but it has a negative win rate right now. I don't know if that's the case for every version. You know, I upload a version on YouTube as well. I think mine has like a 60% win rate, but people are just sleeping on it. But on average, Braum Vladimir, I believe last time I checked, which was this afternoon, was a 48 or 49% win rate.
Ooh, it's now 44.7.
It's 44.7?
I've just gone on to play rate for everyone in the last 2 days for Eternal. It's 44.7. It's dropped 5.7%. I assume that's in the last day.
That
which
must
is crazy.
be. I checked like, well, it's evening now, but I checked in like the morning. So I'm gonna say today people have been playing this deck at Inting. Okay, that's not my fault. It was a little bit higher when I checked, but yeah, if it shows that it dropped by like 4 or 5%, that makes sense. For me, if I go to Eternal, it doesn't work. Like I don't see the stats. So I'm just...
okay, well, the deck, I'm going to say that deck that you're looking at seems a bit odd for the deck building. I think the issue with this deck is it wants to play 2 landmarks. And it's like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is the one with 2 landmarks, yeah.
Yeah. So that's... Yeah, I think that's the version I'm looking at. Or it's like close enough. And it's like, concept-wise, it's really good. They work both together. But you have 4 units then. You're playing Vladimir, who wants to have a lot of units.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want to have as many as you can. So, yeah, it kind of loses value over time. Also, it's like turn 2, you play that. Turn play, you trade that. You play the other one. So then you're playing cards from turn 4. It's like a bit slow.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was my issue with it too. I ran Spirits Unleashed in my version, so that you had a little more like flexibility with the units you play because they're a little bit bigger. So when you have the Crimson Banquet Hall, they don't always die, or they're like a little more, they're a little healthier. But I think for what the deck wants to do, 2 landmarks is just not it. Which feels really awkward because these landmarks work perfectly together. And this is also what I like. I love the Vladimir rework, first of all. Don't get me wrong. It's perfect. Like, I don't think they could have done anything better. But I feel like this deck is missing like a champion level 2 or an aura effect, like a unit that has one of these 2 effects instead of it being a landmark. So that you have a unit for Vladimir to use the ability on, both level 1 and level 2. You have like your transfusion hits, all of that stuff. If it wasn't a landmark but a unit instead, I think like all of the issues with this deck would be gone. I always said that about Scargrounds. Like, it's not very thematic for Noxus to have Vladimir be like, yeah, when I level up, your allies now have, like, when they survive damage, granted +1 and tough. But, like, a Hecarim or Zoe level up with an effect like this would in my opinion, be perfect. Right? Because they say, like, when I level up, this is now, like, your aura, your passive effect for the rest of the game. I think that is what this deck needs.
Like you said, I think the Vladimir change is perfect. I personally just think there needs to be a unit. Probably a unit with tough that gets released in that is specifically designed for the, hey, ping me, rather than the units that don't have stuff. Because you can still trigger the Grounds effects, the I've dealt damage effects, on tough units. They just don't take the damage. They still classify as taking damage. But they, I just feel like if you have a unit that has tough, maybe just make it like a 0/1 with tough.
Yeah.
That's like specifically there to be pinged.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that the deck needs, rather than this cacophony of landmarks that is... If I'm playing this deck and I draw all of my landmarks, someone's gonna play this deck and they're gonna draw all 6 copies of the landmarks, and they're gonna drop the deck immediately.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's a fan favorite. So the Vladimir effect, I think for the future, this is our first episode. I think we should do a bit better at like reading out the abilities. I'll try to do that so that if people are just listening and not looking at the screen, they know what's going on. But Vladimir used to be the level 1 is like, I drain 1 or I deal 1 to everything on my right, and on level 2 it's drain.
Yeah, it was deal 1 to everything on my right and deal that much damage to the Nexus, and this level 2 drains that much from the Nexus.
And now it's deal 1 to any number of allies in play to deal damage to an enemy. So you can literally like select the enemy you want to deal damage to, select any amount of allies that you have. If you select 3, you will deal 3 damage to that. It's a tri-beam on a stick, basically. That's the best way to put it, because you get damage and you get a unit. It's very, very, very well done. Feels very thematic for Vladimir too, where he gets like stronger the more allies you drain, hemomans, suck, whatever you want to call it, really. But yeah, it's the landmarks. It's like you said, if we had like a 1 or 2 mana 0/1 that had the text of these. Okay, let's say a 2 mana 0/1 with tough with the Scarground text in Freljord. Every issue is fixed. It's done. That's all you need, because those regions have protection. I think that's totally fair. They have Troll Chant in Eternal. They have Transfusion, I think, in Standard, but no, that might be Rotate, actually.
I'm actually curious. I can't remember. I don't think I imagine it has been.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure.
Transfusion is available standard.
Okay, well, there you go. That's good protection for a unit like that, and a target to use the Transfusion 1 ping on. That is my take on Vladimir Braum. Love the archetype. I think with the shell that there is right now, it is unlikely to ever be meta if it needs to play 2 landmarks. If you're going back to the old build where you cut the Crimson Banquet Hall, I actually think the win rate would probably be a little bit higher, depending on the meta and the decks you're going to be playing against, because this is super greedy. It's extremely good, but it just takes too long to set up.
The only good thing that this card does is turn 3 Braum. That is literally the only good thing I can say about the card. You can get a turn 3 Braum, but
that
Braum's
is really
still
good,
bad.
though. No, I mean, sure, but for 3 mana, you know, you get a 0/4 and a Poro. You regens. That's not bad, but yeah, if you need to play like this deck to get that off, then that's still not great. So those are the 4 decks. Highest play rate. We covered some of the best win rates. So is there any standout deck that you think for the remainder of the Eternal season that will do very well? If I'm looking at it, I see some like very frustrating decks like Rise. I also think Nico decks, like I love Nico, but I think the deck is a Warden Buried in Ice deck right now, and I find that a little bit lame. But aside from that,
I'm kind of surprised. So in the patch notes, they released quite a lot of things like counter-aggro, and it was like, hey, last Eternal meta was just aggro, and then this one was just like, yeah, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Like, they decided to just like, you had your fun, you're going to be able to play aggro maybe in the next 3 months when we decide to buff aggro again. Because, like, the Mist card, Draining Mist, the one that deals drains 2 from 2.
Yeah, that's like 4 mana now. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, okay, we're just like, you got the Fangs, you've got that card. Last time we had Withering Whale. It was like, okay, clearly this time we're not going for an aggro. You can still play some aggro decks, but they're not like the old aggro where you just go, here's a 1-drop, here's a 1-drop, here's a 1-drop, here's a 1-drop, here's another 1-drop, attack.
I mean, I don't mind aggro in Runeterra. Let me put that first. I think aggro is an important part to have in the game. I think because I enjoy Targon so much, I like playing against those decks because Targon has healing. So I feel like there is an actual back and forth where I try to minimize the damage based on how much healing I have. But if Targon is good, and if Shadow Owl gets their control tools buffed, there is almost no shot that aggro is playable at all. And, you know, that's fair. Targon is like the hero we need but don't deserve, or something like that, you know? It stops aggro.
I definitely think it was nice that they kind of changed the meta for this one, because we don't get like we said, we have a cycle of 3 months. So month 1 and month 2 is standard. Month 3 is basically And the fact that we come back to it every 3 months, and I like the idea that the first one was aggro. Now this one is more of a control combo, because we've got Targon, which is what it likes to do.
Yep.
Maybe we get a mid-range one next time. Maybe we go back to aggro, because standard is very mid-range at the moment. Maybe they aim more stuff at going, okay, let's buff aggro, or buff something else that, like an old archetype that maybe we see. I'll talk about the deck in a second, but maybe we'll see Fiora come back in a deck, because they want to give Fiora her time to rise back up again.
They did buff the one of the challenger units, right? That's supposed to be played in a deck with her. The 3/2 went to. No, you're not. But it is like a Fiora card, so you know.
True.
I wouldn't be upset to see Fiora just sit on the sideline for a little while. I don't particularly enjoy playing against that card. But yeah. As I'm scrolling through this, it's just mostly Targon. Like, this is the top of the ladder. So I'm seeing like a good amount of Jinx Echo. I don't know what they play from Eternal. I think there is actually nothing from Eternal. This is just a standard deck.
Yeah, they literally just went, I want to play standard in Eternal.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, right?
Oh, wait, no, this... I don't think that leaderboard displays Eternal or Standard, so it might actually just be a Standard player.
No, oh, that could be, yeah. Yeah, but I saw the deck multiple times, so I wanted to call it out, but I'm looking at the one that's rank 1, and that does run Get Excited. And that makes a lot of sense, I guess, if you're playing Jinx Echo. Oh, Fallen Feline too.
True.
Fallen Feline is a big one. That one will definitely see play in every single one. Fallen Feline and Get Excited, yeah. So those are the best decks in Eternal. We'll talk a little bit about Standard later. Like, maybe we could do some predictions or something. But that's going to be a bit hard because I barely played Standard. What I did see is Porking is very good, but, you know, we'll see about that later. Let's talk about some of the new cards and what they might be doing for the future expansion, and right now, of course. But we'll start with the beautiful man himself, Mr. Thrift. I love this card. I love this card so much, and if you want to play a bit of a slower Bard Nora deck, this guy will actually like help you a lot into the later stages, but it's completely random because it doesn't go to the top. So you'd never really know when Mr. Thrift is giving you value. I would love to see like a little like thing on the side where it says like, this card was made by Mr. Thrift or something. I would adore that. That would be so perfect.
Yeah, there's no way it could possibly display it right now.
Yeah.
She's
sadly not.
It would be nice. Maybe we have like a piece of thread follow the card from Mr. Thrift himself.
Awesome.
But, I mean, that's animation stuff that it might be out of scope for the developers to work on right now.
I don't know, man. I don't know if you've seen some of these new animations, but they are insane, actually. Like Age of Dragons, we had Pack Attack. All of them look so freaking good. So, like a little thread, like a little, like what do you call it? Like a ball of...
Ball of yarn.
That's the one, like red or different colors or something. It'd be awesome. It would be so perfect. So I played Bard Nora. I know you like the deck too. And in my opinion, the deck got like an entirely new angle because the Realms Caretaker, I think the name is, and the Portal Scholar went from Yordle to Fae. And now you can play Gleaming Lantern in that deck. There's no Pokestick, and Pokestick is huge for this deck. But I don't think it matters. Like, almost every card is standard worthy, and it was doing well for me in Eternal. It's like, you don't really care about interaction with that deck. You just go for the phase, the discounts, and all the portal shuffling.
So, the one thing I want to mention here is, we're talking about Bard Nora, and I think you know this as well. This card is just a Bard card as well. You can play this in Bard's region.
Yeah.
And it's the only card that doesn't say Chime on it, but is in Bard's region, and it's because Bard's origin is... can place a chime into the deck, and technically this card can place a chime into the deck.
Oh, I thought it just needed the word chime. Ah,
No. So it was like, so someone messaged the dev and was like, it was Throws and Frawl, Doug. He posted, was like, hey, this is in Bard's region. You know that, right? And he was like, yeah, like it can plant a chime. It's supposed to be there. It's like, oh, okay. I don't see this being as good in a Bard deck, but the Bard Nora deck is, I could see this just turn this play one. You play this on turn 1 if you don't have like Bird, so that you have something on the board.
Yeah.
It's an engine. They either deal with it or it will slowly generate value for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so this is really weird to say, but this is like a slower Dragon Chow in a way, but you don't mind blocking with it. And then if you go like later into the game, you land some chimes on it with Bard. It's not necessarily a bad draw later in the game because of the way Bard works. Still don't love it. But yeah, the best case scenario for this is you play this on 1, you play like Bird or Nora on turn 2. If it shuffles like 2 chimes or 1 portal, it's already like kind of fine depending on what kind of deck you're playing as, because if you get into those later stages, that value will eventually just matter. If you pop like a portal out of your deck that you shouldn't have, that can be game changing, especially with the way the phase work now and the Realms Caretaker. I think the name is Realms Caretaker. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, no, the Realms Caretaker.
Okay.
Right name.
So yeah, everything kind of just came together for this deck. And what I really like one of my favorite like ways to win for Bard Nora, I guess, is if they try to use a spell to remove your stuff and you use the Signpost, which draws. And that is like huge for this deck, because while you're denying their spell, you could draw into portals or chimes. And that can be game winning. I feel like Signpost is entirely a Bard Nora deck because of that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy this card exists. I don't think it's like extremely good. I don't think it's like going to break the meta or anything, but look at him. He's Mr. Thrift. How can you not like him?
Yeah, I think going down the deck of like cards that are just good in the decks that they're in, I wouldn't say this is if you had to rate it on a 0 to 10 of where I think how strong this is, I'd probably put it at a 4. It's probably not amazing, but what it does good. It's a very small niche at what it does, but when it does it, you're probably quite happy when it goes off. So
yeah, and
it gets a thumbs up from me.
Just having another 1-drop, it is a 0-3, but you don't mind blocking with a 0-3 in Bard Nora, weirdly enough. It's like, if it gets some value, and you're just like trading off a unit on the board to like block something bigger, and then you replace it with a portal later on, that's job's done. That's all that deck really needs. So I agree, it's a 4. Sometimes it's gonna feel underwhelming because you don't draw those additional portals, and then it's hard to like, it's really hard to rate that value that it gets. It's like, how do I know what Mr. Thrift actually did for me? Like, he blocked something, he got some shuffles, or he like planted some extra chimes or portals, but I don't know if I got those. So it's like, it's really hard to rate the impact he actually has on your games and subsequently like on the meta game or what the deck does.
What I will say is, if there was a way that you could find out which cards portals came from Mr. Thrift,
exactly.
That any value, so it's the way that I like to play the Annika, which is the Darkin weapon. As soon as that summons a card, the cost of Annika drops in price. Yeah. So Annika's an 8 cost. I summon a 5 cost unit. Annika was a 3 cost. That's how you should see that card.
Yeah.
Mr. Thrift will always give you value. He basically, as long as he puts a chime or a portal into the deck, he automatically gives you value. It's always better when it's a it's always better when it's a portal. You have the chance of getting 3 cost units. Blocking Badger Bear. If you pulled a 4/4 because of a portal that Mr. Thrift put in, you've literally just saved yourself 2 mana and you've gained 5 stats because of the 4 attack and 4 health.
Yeah.
So.
No, exactly. And the statement, like what I'm about to say, just is going to make it even more clear that I'm not like a top tier player or anything, and that I don't try to optimize my decks. But if you shuffle a portal early, you're going to get it later in the game, and at that point, there's also a higher chance that Nora is leveled. So, you know, Mr. Thrift, he like gets the stuff that you need at the right time. So. All right, this card. I have a lot to say about this one, but I'm going to let you go first.
I've not touched this card.
I had a feeling, man. Why
this
not,
card?
though? Why not?
All right. I don't like the... So, I'm not going to lie. So, I get all of the patch notes early. Right? It gives me the press release. It's like, hey, we know that you're going to be doing press on these. So, they'll release these cards to me, and I get to look at these cards. I was looking at this, and I was deck building in my head before it was released. And I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be really cool in a Viego deck. And then it got released, and everyone was like, okay, I'm just going to print this card as fast as I can, and then cast Atrocity. And I'm like... That's certainly one way to use the card.
That first part, it's a Sunny effect, by the way. I was going to print this card. And that's what you're meant to do with this.
Yeah, when it gets printed, I've been watching Aikaido. Aikaido was playing this on for like probably about 3 hours. And it was just the Darkrai into the splitter card that creates 2 ephemeral ones. I can't think of the name in my head.
Soulcleave?
Soulcleave.
Yeah.
Yeah, Soulcleave. And then it generates it, and then it comes out as like an 8/8, and all you need is 1 more, and then you can cast Atrocity.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the deck seems like a good combo deck. But apart from that, I'll be interested to see how this is used standard.
Yeah, I love this card. I think this is definitely teasing something that we're getting in the future, because there are some tools now. I also think it makes sense, by the way, and I think it's super cool that this released during the Eternal season, because it feels like right now you really need Eternal cards to make this work. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of support maybe in the next expansion. I don't think we're going to get a Shadow Isle champion with the teasers we've been getting. I tried to build a deck with this card for, I want to say like 5 hours, maybe even more, because it was across multiple streams, and I just refused to play Atrocity at first because it's lame, right? You're printing a card, you finally get like your 2000 dark rates. It's like, okay, now I get to do cool stuff. Now I get to slam my opponent with like big stats, and they're never going to be able to block it because they're going to die. It's much cooler to give it like Overwhelm or something, but it just doesn't win. It's I tried the Visionary version, which had like it had like a bunch of ways to give random keywords with, and I had like Void Gate, so you would shuffle keywords into your deck and discard. I tried it with the Twisted Fate deck and the Swindler's Den. I tried Elusive, the Camo Cloaker from Piltover. I tried so many things. It just, there was just no way. The specific printing that you need and the region combo, it's just really hard to get off. And Shadow Isle's only other way to finish a game with big units is Atrocity. So that's just kind of where you need to be at. And I hope there is more in the form of maybe a champion that synergizes with like these type of cards, where you know, maybe Yorick, and he like digs those 1-drops out of your deck. I don't know, man. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's stats only go so far in Runeterra, especially when you're in the later game. Stats don't do anything because you just have decks that throw out units. You need keywords. The fact that you have to like develop something onto this for it to get value is definitely a hindrance to the card. But I like the design, and yeah, I'm interested to see how this blossoms in possibly in the future. If they release a Yorick or someone who can use this card in a better light.
Yeah, same. No, that's really all there is to say about it. Right now, it's just an eternal card because of Atrocity. Let's move on. This one. Okay, so I asked on Twitter, and you replied with a...
I replied twice.
Oh, did you? Okay, so I was not super impressed by most of the replies. You had like an Eve Kai'Sa deck or something, right? That you replied with. Yeah. So I wanted to build a deck with this. No, you go first.
That was the Eternal one.
Yeah.
Which used the Herald of the Magus to give Eve and Kai'Sa Overwhelm, so that you could focus on getting goods that weren't those, and also giving your champions a win con. Because I feel like the issue with that deck is that, like, hey, I've just played a Kai'Sa. It's a 6/6 Kai'Sa. It's just like we've just said, stats don't do anything. It's just a 6/6 Kai'Sa. You've removed all my husks and all my keywords. Like, it's not doing anything. But I think in Standard, this probably could see play. I don't think the Eve deck was that far out of playability, especially with Siren Song. Yes, it got nerfed to 6 cost, but you can play this on turn 2. And you're not unhappy to see this. If we saw this card released with Siren Song, we would be having an entirely different conversation.
Oh, yeah.
This card would have been insane, because you could have played this, attacked, onto turn 3, you could be playing Siren Song. 2 husks, both of them buffed. Not happening in my game. Not in my game.
I have a conspiracy theory that this card used to be 1 mana, and then they nerfed it because of what Siren Song did to the game. They're like, oh, let's just not print another good husk card. I feel like at 2 mana, this is bad, but at 1 mana, it would be like... I actually think at 1 mana, this would be acceptable. Like, it could snowball a game. Actually, no, at 1 mana, it would still be broken if you had the attack token. No, it would not be okay at 1 mana. Like, could you imagine this on 1 and then, like, Akshan on 2 or something? Or Samira on 2? Yeah.
So, I think this at 1 was probably where it was, but I still think this is better than the other 2-drop in the Husk deck, which is the 1/3. I think this is infinitely better than that, just because of how bad that one is. So,
yeah. I agree.
I don't think it's good in Eternal, but I'm hopeful to see someone build a Husk deck with this for Standard when we eventually rotate back into Standard.
Yeah, no, I actually think this could be a Nami card. I think if Nami is going to be playable, it's going to be with Ionia for the protection tools. And playing this on 2, getting a Husk for your Nami on 3 is very good, because you need like that little bit of extra juice to keep the Nami around and level her up because you got reward. I played this with Master Yi, and Master Yi is bad. Like,
you don't need to tell me. I tried for a week to make him playable, and I'm pretty sure I don't have a 30% over the 5 decks I made.
Yeah, no, he's really bad. But the cool thing was about this is you play this on 2, you get that Husk for your engine champions, and then you win the game through them. And I really like that angle. I refuse to play stuff like Shelly and Burblefish in that deck because I don't like that. But just that angle where you play like an important 3-mana unit and you can get a Husk with Ares through this. And then you also have ways to buff Ares in the later game because it is an elusive and it can be a win con with Nami. Is kind of cool, I think. I enjoyed that. So I think there is potential, but right now I don't see it either. All right. Probably not much left to say about this one. Good card. Very good card.
It's insane in Eternal, and I stand by my statement before. I don't think we'll see many decks. I'll probably say it's going to be a tier 2, maybe a tier 3 deck in Standard. But for Eternal, for right now, this card, it does exactly what it wants to do, and it does it very well.
Exactly, yeah. So 2 things that I want to say here. There was going to be a separate section in this podcast for bugs, but I think we can just cover that now. The Mage Seeker buff. Now, you are all over that, so why don't you go ahead?
I was. So, for those that won't know, and I don't know if you're going to put this in post, but here's my hands. Here's a screenshot of the post I did today. There's 3 cards that were bugged by Mage Seeker Jr. So, I would refer to these as modal cards. But they're multiple choice cards. That's how I'm going to refer to them. So multiple choice cards in the sense of you cost X or pay more to get a stronger effect. It was 3, which were Answered Prayers, Tag Out, and Cosmic Call. You had Mage Seeker on the board. All of the options that said pay more were all set to 3 because the original card was 2. Someone posted this on Twitter and was like, hey, Cosmic Call can be cast for 3 mana for the half effect as long as you have Mage Seeker Jr. on the board. It then got revealed that that is only for you. If your opponent played played Mage Seeker Jr. and you tried to abuse this bug, it would still cost 8, which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, okay, the code is just spaghetti at that stage. So then it got passed around. The competitive players were talking about it, saying like, hey, you shouldn't be playing this card. If you're doing it, you are bug abusing.
Yep.
And I messaged a Riot developer and was like, hey, not sure if you're aware of this. This is pretty game breaking. As if, like, I didn't want to talk about it too much on the timeline because I didn't want to see this in my games. So I saw it, I commented it on the timeline. I went straight into DMs and was like, hey, you kind of need to look at this. This is like, I think this should be brought to your attention. Also, the other cards, I imagine they would get fixed at the same time. I didn't see much of it. I don't think I actually played against it, which is, I'm very happy because it's hotfixed now.
Yeah.
However, a person did take it to a tournament and win. We're not going to talk about that, but it definitely was strong. It definitely was. It was. Bear in mind, we've got the Open in just over a week. I definitely, if this wasn't hotfixed, you could 100% see people bringing that bug and doing well.
Yeah. No, I'm glad it's hotfixed. I had this issue on stream a couple of times too. I didn't want to say what it was because I didn't want people to go too ladder to abuse it. So eventually I just said, yeah, in my opinion, if you abuse this bug, you deserve to get banned. And with that out of the way, I'm not going to tell you what the bug is. I feel like, yeah, I'm still here to provide information. The bug isn't my fault. I don't want people to abuse it. But yeah, you get so many questions about that in chat. But I had a rough time actually figuring out what the morally correct thing to do was. But just do not bug abuse ever, because Riot at some point will come down on you. This was the same thing. I don't know how many. Actually, you might notice, but there was a bug with Arsenal back in the day when Arsenal was revealed or released. Arsenal had the effect.
True.
Where Arsenal, for every landmark that has been destroyed this game, he gets a random keyword. It used to work in a way, so right now it works that if you summon the Arsenal, he just gets all the keywords all at once because it's a summon effect. Used to be he gets it in hand, so you could see what keywords he had in hand. Soon as Arsenal obtained Spell Shield in hand and you play them, the Spell Shield would be permanent. And there was a big streamer that I'm not going to name that was bug abusing that for multiple streams. He no longer plays, and I don't think there was any punishment for him, but no, I can't remember. I'm gonna say probably people didn't get punished, but I hope they do this time for this bug.
So yeah, I don't think many people have abused this. However, because we're displaying the points for the Runeterra Open, I can say visually, I have seen people that have been caught taking advantage of bugs, and they no longer have any points.
Really?
So that is just me being like, hey, this person has points, or someone's come to me and be like, hey, I'm missing points, and then I've contacted Riot and they're like, oh yeah, that's correct, they have no points, we can't go into further with me. As in, like, I'm pressed, and they're just like, oh yeah, no, we can only speak to that person about it, so if they want to get in contact with us, they can. And I just kind of like connected the dots and was like, oh, okay.
Very good.
Like, it's yeah, so I could imagine if someone was abusing this and they got quite high on the ladder, they probably would have just had their ladder points like ignored, because they would have gained them illegitimately.
Yeah, I don't think there were like world points back in the day when that Arsenal bug was around, so there was probably less way to punish those players because there were less stakes. But now there are, and I think that is good. A ban, world points just being deducted entirely, not being able to participate in future Riot events, all just great solutions in my opinion. One more thing about this card. If this sees play in standard, I'm going to tell you what I think it will be playable with, and then you can tell me what you think this will be playable with. The first one is unoriginal. I think it's going to be ramp, just like a failured Targon ramp deck somewhat. I think that it is like you ramp to 5, or well, to 6, I guess, so you have to spell mana, and then you play this card, and then you get a 5 mana Living Legend, and you win off of that. Or, hear me out, Jace.
Yes. I could see that.
That's
Jace,
the other one.
Yeah, I can see that. You play Jason 4, you play 6 mana, draw 2 cards, refill 3, you play that twice, Cosmic Call twice, off Walling Cost, and yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah,
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, you play 3 star shapings, you play the Telstone, so you sometimes invoke, you sometimes host. That's like all the expensive invokes you really need Maybe Moondreamer, like you're playing like, I don't know, some Nightfall stuff. That's all it takes. You find one Living Legends and you win the game off of it. That's my guess, but you know, moving on. That's standard. That's for later. This card, again, Vladimir card and a infinite card, a terrible infinite deck with like 30% win rate that will sometimes pop off on you. That's I expect this to break the game at some point though, 100%.
I agree, and I said this in my initial reveal, like, go over cards. This is an Eternal card that was released to Standard. I have zero idea why this is in Standard. Like, I understand that they want to release cards that are for Eternal, but, like, you can't play anything in Standard that wants it. Maybe the Infinite that you were talking about. But apart from that, there's no other deck that wants it. So it'll have to be something they release in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just bad in Standard. Maybe good in Eternal. I won't say it's going to be great. Like, if I had to say, maybe a 4 in Eternal and a 0 in Standard.
Yeah, I think I agree. So, Loki, I think this might actually be broken at some point with elites. Like the really expensively, like Citria. I think the 8-mana 7/7 toughest rotated, but that kind of stuff, I feel like that is where you need to look. So like really big units that already have good health with a strong summon effect, or there is just going to be some kind of summon effect where you only care about that summon effect. Like imagine like there is a 5-mana 1/1 that summons a 7/7 or something, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm happy getting out on turn 4 instead of turn 5. I'm just saying something.
It's play effects as well, so it's only if you have something that summons another unit.
Yeah, then that doesn't get affected.
Marasa, the one from Bandle System that got rotated.
Risu,
yeah, Risu.
That's a good example, yeah, on turn 4. Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that was a 1/1 that got changed to a 1/3. So you can technically play that now, and it can survive, but like, it's in Eternal, so that's an Eternal card. It's for Standard, it's still not going to do it.
No, exactly. Yeah, I expect this to break something at some point. It's actually really funny, and I think this is a good time to bring this up. I don't want to compare Runeterra to other games too much, but Hearthstone actually had a patch that came out today, and they did something for the first time ever. They released... Okay, so they had 120 changes, I believe, to their wild cards, which is their Eternal cards, just for that format, which is, you know, Runeterra was first, let's be honest here. And they released about 20 or 30 wild or Eternal only cards. So those cards were not playable in Standard, but only in Eternal. So they were all support for like older archetypes. And I thought that was super cool. And low-key, if Runeterra did that, I feel like this would be one of those cards. This would be like, hey, here's an Eternal only card.
Listen, I'm not going to say that I'm against it. I just think it's pretty weird that the fact that this is playable in Standard. I like the idea that you can release stuff and it could just be for Eternal. I think some of the people that only play Eternal, I think they will love this. But they would love that idea, but I just think that this card being in Standard is just a bit of a miss.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything about it right now. I think it will probably be fine right now, but like you said, the issue is going to be future stuff, because we are going to reach a point where a new card gets released, and then it's going to be miserable to play for a month until the patch, or like a week until the hotfix, because this card already exists. That's how I feel about that.
I agree with that statement.
Yeah, here's a ping one twice. Yeah.
Ping one twice, but I genuinely believe so. There's a couple of cards, so everyone's been like hyped around this because of the art. This is for the people that don't know. Divine Draft uses a person that looks like Janna. There's a bit of a change to Janna's appearance, but you can tell it's Janna. So there's either two things. Janna is a card that they're just teasing for the sake of it, or like Pack Attack last variety set, we're getting Janna next season. But it's also interesting because you wouldn't expect Janna to do pings, so the curiosity in the people that are like this of like, ooh, what's coming next? Like Twisted, for example. Twisted is like talking about this in it's like, oh, interesting. Maybe we're going to see a different concept for Janna. But yeah, I think as a card, it's a card. Probably will be good when Janna releases like Pack Attack. Well, Pack Attack's made with Nidalee, but it's I definitely think that right now, it's okay. The only time I'd say this is going to be really good is in Seraphine decks. If Seraphine generates this is pretty good. You like that. Because it's deal 2 to deal 2 to something else. But apart from that, it's a meh card. It exists. If you generate it, it's not bad. You're probably not main decking it, in my opinion.
I don't know about that. I think this card is very main deckable. A 2-mana slow, deal 1 twice, just feels like a pretty solid effect to me. If there is one region that can make use of this, it is going to be Piltover. Maybe they are pushing like that spell damage direction a little bit more for Piltover. But yeah, the most interesting part is just that Janna in the background. And as soon as you see that, like there is a prominent champion that is in the art, it's like this will probably push some kind of archetype. There will probably be something that this is linked to in one way that will make it playable in those decks. But yeah, right now it's just like a better bouncing bomb, like the Ziggs card. I know that has like the flexibility, but like a 3-mana deal 2 or a 3-mana deal 1 twice, none of these are good. So a 2-mana, 1 mana cheaper to deal 1 twice, I find that, you know, maybe it might depend on the meta, but I think that's playable. It keeps aggro out even more possibly.
You know what? Anything to keep aggro down, I'll take it.
Exactly. Yeah, and here's the other one. This is another, like, generally good card. This is Tidal Invocation. 2 mana, fast speed, deal 1 to units, spawn 1 for each damage dealt for build fodder. Feels very much like the last one, except much better because it's Vile Feast.
Yeah, it's Vile Feast without the drain. I feel like there's going to be a deck that absolutely pops off with this. It's going to be a BB deck, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I was thinking today, playing this in Eternal with Soraka and Alawi, so that you can have like a ping for like a Soraka deck. I played one game, it went awful. I didn't draw the card, but like the deck's just bad, and I thought, okay, let's try and build something that, yes, it has its intended design for like BB, but I kind of was curious to test out this with Spawn specifically. I guess we'll just have to wait and see until, because at the moment there's no deck that really plays this, and that's like like this card's really good in this deck. It's a card that's in a deck. It sees value, but there will be a deck that absolutely loves this in the future. It will be a BB deck, and can timestamp this and show me when this card eventually gets nerfed, and I'm like, hold up.
Yeah, it has to be like that and some Swain style deck, right? Like the Noxus builds for the control style deck. This is going to be insane in. Good thing Flock got rotated. That's really all I have to say about this card. Screw you, Flock.
Yep, I'm the biggest Flock hater out of anyone I know. That was the one thing. I was like, if rotation's happening, Flock can go, and I can lose 10 of my favorite champions. I don't care. It was a worthy. It can be a worthy sacrifice.
Yeah, for me that was Ezreal for sure. Okay, the Shurima Landmark, 3 mana, Valley of Imitation. When you play a follower, transform me into an exact copy of it. This round, I retain granted buffs. And this is the other bug. I want to play this card with Chimes, but that doesn't work. It doesn't copy hand buff, so it's not an exact copy.
There is 2 bugs with this card.
Yeah?
If you stun it, it is stunned forever. Because it doesn't get the round end effect. Because it transforms back into the landmark before the round end. So it never loses its stun because it never ever sees round end.
That's so weird.
They're going to have to code it, I think, so that you can stun this, so this landmark can be stunned, so that by the end of the turn, it can turn back to a landmark. The landmark will be stunned, and then it will lose its stun as it's a landmark. That's how I think they'll have to resolve it. The also other thing, which is in the same one, if you frostbite this card, it forever stays frostbitten.
No way, man.
So this card, so if you're ever playing against this card currently, and you never want to see it pop off, just stun it or frostbite it. That's all I'm going to say. And it's never going to do anything.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know, I guess. That's less bug abusing, I guess, because, you know, the user of this card doesn't do it intentionally. But that's weird, because if you use, like, a temporary give buff, it doesn't stay. Like, I don't think Pill Cascade or Form Up stay on this card. But
no, I don't think so. I'll have to test that, though.
I'm pretty sure I used Sharp Side on it, and it didn't stay. So...
yeah, there's some interesting things. So, like, I've played this with the Poppy Galio deck, I think. Yeah, I think it was a Poppy Galio deck. If you play Broadwing, summon a Broadwing, it then transforms into the thing, and then it gains the Challenger, but then the next unit gains Challenger. Yeah, but
it makes sense, right? Because you grant the Broadwing Challenger, and it says it keeps granted buffs. I love that interaction. I played that Poppy Galio deck yesterday, and the Yordle Ranger is so funny. If you play Yordle Ranger or even Balin, which we'll get to a little later, if you play these cards, every time they attack, they grant units that are on the board currently, so also the Valley of Imitation +1 health. So the next time you summon a unit, the Valley of Imitation transforms and it has like +8 health. I think I summoned like the Petrified Hound, and it was just like a 0/10. It's so funny.
We'll get on to Balin later, because I've got a lot to say about that card. But for this one specifically, it's really good. I like it in Nidalee decks. I've seen a couple of the Nidalee decks run it. I think this is genuinely quite good. If you have a card that likes... it has an attack effect. You play it. So, for example, Cithria. A 6 mana 5/5?
6.
She's an elite. I should know this.
Yeah.
You play her. You get 2 of them.
Yeah.
Sister is a card you have to answer. You can't really just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit back, because no, everything's getting +1/+1 and everything's getting fearsome. You better be prepared to stop this attack. And 2 Civ 3s with this, I like it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think this card is generally going to be in a tier 1 or high tier 2 deck. I think it is that good. But there will have to be a specific shell that can use this landmark well to actually utilize it.
But one thing we haven't mentioned is if you play this and then on turn 7 you play Cobra, your entire board is filled with Cobras. That is the combo deck at the moment that was seeing relatively good play. It is a champless deck, which is interesting. Oh, never mind. It's 49% win rate at the moment.
Oh,
right, never mind.
It was like that's what I thought. Like I checked the win rate of that deck at one point a few days ago, and it was like at 48 or 49. And then people told me to check again, and it was at like 53. But I guess it dropped again to 49%.
I guess if you have an answer to the deck, such as destroying the landmark, the deck literally doesn't do anything. But if you don't, enjoy a full board of Cobras in one turn. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, it is a fun interaction, but yeah, I'm glad that deck isn't super good. Yeah, I mean, it's just those type of combo decks that pop off with just a specific hand are never super enjoyable, and Ionia does have enough like stalling to make that work. So yeah, let's keep it at the 49% win rate range, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. Combos that are normally extremely fun to pull off are extremely toxic to play against.
Yeah.
Rise being a good example. And I think it's quite fair to say that, yeah, you don't want a deck like that being incredibly strong, but if it pops off every so often, I think it's...
Yeah, agreed. All right. Read it out and take the floor, Marshall.
A 4 mana from Demacia, Balin the Benevolent. He has the formidable keyword and reads the text. Attack. Grant formidable allies everywhere, +0/+1, and he is a 0/4. What a card! I love this card. It's so good.
Oh, he looks so friendly too. What a Chad! Look at him.
So I don't know if you saw the concept art for this. The concept art is incredibly cute. It was the one I sent you the picture of for that YouTube thumbnail where I made him evil.
with the glowing red eyes. Yeah,
the glowing red eyes. But like, this card was right. I'm telling you this now. When we go back to standard, if there's nothing that can check formidables, the formidables are coming back in standard. Because the only thing that this deck doesn't have in standard is Ranger's Resolve, Trollchan, maybe Hearthblood Mender, but I'm running Hearthblood Mender in my deck because I just think it's a broken card, so it's kind of stupid not to include.
Yeah, and a Sharp Side, I would say, maybe. But if you're running Trollchan, then yeah, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, hard. Chef Kiss on design. It is incredible. Can it be countered? Of course it can. Just Soul Cleave it. Oh, not Soul Cleave. What's the card I'm thinking
Soul
of?
Harvest. Yeah, Soul Harvest.
Soul Harvest, the other Soul card. You Soul Harvest it.
You can also Soul Cleave it for like the +2, but you know.
True. It's just the deck building opportunities this brings is so good. My favorite combo that I didn't know is the 3 mana card that you support and give something formidable.
Oh, that works with this, yeah. Instead of +2, it's +3.
With this. Yes. So they'll get the +2 from the support, and then they'll get the formidable, and then Balin can buff it. But because Balin buffs formidables everywhere, so just say you attack 3 times with Balin and then play the Durand Architect, it gives +2 from the support, and then it gains the +3 from the everywhere, goes on top of that. So you support and give it 5 health. It is such a funny combo. It's probably not that good, but I just love the stuff that you can do with this card. It is amazing. This was the card that Galio needed. Because Galio wasn't that far off playability. I'm telling you that now.
Oh, I agree. Galio is a good champion. He just didn't have a deck. For
Demacia, yes, I enjoyed Elites, but like, come on. How do you not love this boy? Look at him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to say that with this card especially, Riot is absolutely just knocking it out of the park and looking at some of the archetypes that have gotten a bit stale and, you know, my opinion, boring, like Frostbites with the Frozen in Fear stuff, and now Formidables. It's more than just like, oh, I'm gonna drop like some big stats. I'm gonna drop a high health, and these are using the Formidable keyword. Now you have like an actual kind of like build around a unit that makes a deck exciting to play. You get different angles. How can I get the most value from the Balin? And I love that. I adore these type of cards because those type of archetypes, they needed something to give it that exciting moment. And now the exciting moments are dropping the Galio and getting to attack with Balin. And that's really, really good.
The one thing I want to add on to Balin as well is the fact that he helps your late game draws. You attack with Balin twice, but 1-drops that were 2/2. Well, we'll call them 2/2s because they're formidable. They were 2/2s. They're now 4/4s, and only because you've attacked with the 4-attack unit. Like, insane. I love this. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm expected to see this one in standard. Now I think this is the last card, the Crystalline Storm Raptor.
I'm just opening my window because it's hot in my room. I closed my windows before. It is quite toasty.
Well, good thing we got to the Freljord card then, Marshall.
Oh, I'm nice and cold.
5-mana bird from Freljord. 3/2, play, deal 2 to all other units. I mean, I don't know. I thought this was okay, because usually, like, just putting the effect of a card on a unit is pretty good. But it's a 3/2, and you're dealing 2 to all other units. I just don't really see what this goes into.
It's specifically a ramp card to deck aggro. And the reason why it's not seeing play is because you can't see aggro. In Eternal, we're playing Cosmic Gall. Standard, I don't know what. I think I saw Lurk, and this doesn't beat Lurk. Like,
no, not even. I mean, Heimer Jace,
Lurk,
maybe it kills some
Heimer
turrets.
Jace,
Probably not.
Is Samira Poro King, like you said before, Poro King seeing a bit of playability.
Samira it's good against.
True. But yeah, I think there'll be a time that this sees play. Yeah. But at the moment, it's 0. You're just playing Avalanche instead.
Yeah, so I think the strongest thing about this card, and that is important, and I think that is what it's intended for, is that in Freljord, if you are playing those type of ram decks, you're ramping on 3 and then you get to 5. So you technically get to play this on 3 and you get a 3/2. What annoys me about this card is that it is a 3/2. If this was a 3/3, it'd be fine. Because if you're running this card, you're probably also looking at cards like Avalanche. So at that point, you're playing this, and then you can't really play your Avalanche after because your 3/2 will die. And that's like hella awkward. I think this card would like be fine, and I would actually rate it a lot higher as a 3/3. This is like the one time where that 1 point of health just changes everything because of the cards that the deck already uses. It's like Friendly Fire, and it makes it so awkward in Freljord.
Yeah, I think if this went to 3 health, it'd be a little bit strong personally. Just because, like you said, you can do this into Avalanche combo. But it's been also revealed, we can talk about this now, that the name that this was called in development hints towards Volibear. It was like the bringer of Dawn, something like that.
1,000 pierced.
Oh yeah, it was something to do with specifically the 1,000 pierced Volibear. And everyone was like, okay, this could possibly be another teaser that we're getting Volibear next expansion. So there is the point of, okay, what does this bring for Volibear's design then? Is Volibear going to be a Avalanche on a stick? Is it like anti-aggro in that way? Yes, we'll just have to find out. But this card is the pack attack of this expansion.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Cards.
Yep, I agree, 100%. Yeah, it's we got the Janna teasers, we got the Volibear teasers, so I am pretty excited about getting like a Storm kind of expansion. I think the fact that they are like theming their expansions a lot more like consistently, instead of it just being like, oh, this is the Targon expansion, this is the Bilgewater expansion. Now we're getting like, this is the Fighter expansion, this is the Jungle expansion, this could be the Storm expansion, which I think is super cool. And with that being said, the fact that Volibear and Janna have that like connection, even though there is no lore implications or something, the fact that they both do something with like controlling the weather or the wind or the electricity, lightning, whatever, I think that is a very cool angle, and I'm excited to see what the third champion is going to be. But with that, I think we got everything. So the only thing that I think we should go over really fast in a couple of minutes, to not make it too long, is the Emporium. And I think we have opposite stances on that, so...
We definitely do, which is going to be very interesting for the people that don't know our stances.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk about the Emporium first. So, the Emporium is it was advertised as the Legacy shop. there's a couple of things that make it probably not best to call it the Legacy Shop anymore. We should just refer to it as the Emporium, because there's stuff in there that aren't specifically Legacy. So it's not just a Legacy stuff. So for example, the Path of Champions stuff, the Epic Relics, that's not Legacy content. That's new content that people can look forward and go for. So it's more of just a new shop for the game, which at the moment there is 7 slots available. Each slot has a different rarity. The legendary slots offer discounts. The highest I think I've seen is a 40% discount, which is quite nice considering I didn't actually expect them to bring discounts to any of the LOR shops. Even if it's one slot that has a discount, it's still more than I expected. And yeah, there's stuff there from skins to boards to guardians to emotes. Anything that was Legacy can appear in there up to a certain point. So for example, the Soul Fighter skins from the event pass, I don't think we'll see them for a couple of months. My guess is going to be 6. It might be even. It might be a year before Legacy content appears in the shop. But the main thing that people are talking about is the cost of some of the stuff in the store, because there are mixed feelings on the cost of what they're charging people, which is where we have our differences.
Exactly. So I'm not trying to make this a debate or something. I just want to like give the information and tell the people what's going on. So exactly like you said, the prices are, in my opinion, like too high for some of it. I think especially the conversion from coins that you get with real money versus the green essence that you're paying for some stuff is off. I think the green essence is way too high. It should be toned down a little bit. And there's also the timers that I think are too long. Like I have a slot which has the World Championship competitor card back, which I don't think should be there, and that is in my store for like 12 weeks. So I can see a different item there in November or something, and that's just too much.
So there's 2 bugs at the moment. Some of the stuff that wasn't supposed to be there, such as all of the competitive rewards, shouldn't appear in there. And Riot have confirmed that everyone who saw the competitive thing, that shouldn't have been there, and it's a bug. I have no idea if they're going to revert that. As of recording this, they said they're going to release a statement this week about feedback of the Emporium, because there was quite a bit of backlash. But we'll see what they change and if they're going to revert some of the people that bought those rewards. That's what they are, basically. The rewards for doing well, and the fact that people can just buy them now, it kind of tarnishes that. So I'm personally hoping that they allocate someone to look refund everyone, because I think that's only fair for the Worlds competitors, and I think it would be fair for the people to be like, hey, it was a bug, but unfortunately you're not allowed to have this. Here's your money back, kind of.
Yeah.
But the other bug was, I think you realized it as well on stream, but I don't think you realized what it was doing. So you know when you click on something and then after you close and reopen it, and it then recloses itself, so like you haven't seen it yet, the timer resets. Yeah. So you can't that won't change until they fix that. So someone, I think Bandle Keith was saying it today. Bandit Keith. He clicks it, and it was just refreshing the timer every 15 seconds, and I'm like, he's never gonna get it changed. And
for me, it's just like the infernal Poro. I'm just stuck with a Poro that's on fire there forever. You're stuck in limbo over there.
So I imagine there's a couple of bugs, and I think overall, just to like wrap this section up, overall, I agree with you. It's a great thing to have. We never had access to this in the past. The fact that we have access to it now is the biggest buff that this game could have. It's one of the things that people know this game is lacking, the monetization for it, being able to make money in this game somehow. People will be willing, some people will be willing to pay the price to get the legacy stuff. I
am a bit of a whale, yeah.
And others like myself, I think they're going to drop the price, so I want to look after my money in the sense of, yes, I want to spend it. I've bought the coins anyway, so the game has the money, but for my value, I want to see better value, and hopefully they'll adjust it. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. Riot have set the price then after the feedback, and they've said, that's what you're going to have to pay. If that's that, I have to pay. But I do think there's quite a lot of stuff that just need number adjustments, which in my opinion is a good launch in the sense of the concept was there. It was just the numbers were wrong, and the numbers are the easiest thing to fix.
Exactly.
Oh, we charge something 300,000. It should be 30,000. All right, knock off a zero. Like it's quite simple like that. And I think overall, I'm very excited to see what they're going to say this week, because I think they will be announcing it tomorrow, is my guess. I think
so
when this video comes live, because I think you said you're going to release it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm releasing it on Wednesday. So that's exactly 1 week after the patch. That is also the plan going forward with this podcast. But yeah, like you said, I agree. It's great that the store is here. It's very easy to fix some of the bugs eventually, fix some of the pricing. What we need to just focus on right now is that we have a new store, and it'll only get better over time. There will be better deals. There will be probably new items in there, new cosmetics, and that's all we can really ask for as a community. So with that out of the way, I think the last thing we're going to do is some looking ahead on the LOR report calendar. So on the 26th is the Mastering Runeterra Eternal Open. I'm always very excited for some tournaments. That lasts 2 days, but...
It doesn't last 2 days. For some reason, the calendar is booked. So the way that I thought this calendar works is that if I set my time, if I set the times in my time, everyone sees it for their time. It doesn't. So I'm going to adjust this calendar for people that want to use it. Where you can hover over it and it tells you like a little description. So it says there, grassroots tournament hosted by Mastering Runeterra. I'll put in the region times so that you can look at it and go, okay, that is the time that it's for Marshall, but let me see what time it is for me. So the Mastering Runeterra one is on Saturday. And just Saturday, but it's American Saturday, which is why it overlaps.
Okay, so that's the 26th. Okay. So, next month, this is what I'm excited about. On the 11th, we have the Eternal Runeterra Open. Also, very excited. I love watching these. On the 3rd...
That's day 2. So,
day 2, okay.
So the 2nd... So, this is the calendar issue. It's spread over. So, on the 2nd... for your region, you have 6 a.m. for your region shard until 8 p.m. You have your Eternal Runeterra opens. You'll make it to the top 64 of your shard. You get invited to day 2, which is on Sunday the 3rd.
Yeah.
So that one where Sunny's hovering over now, that's South Americas. There'll be one for APAC, there's one for EMEA, and there's one for Americas. At the moment in time, Aegis Esports are doing watch parties. I don't know if they're sponsored by Riot, because Riot aren't doing like official broadcasts, smaller opens like these Eternal and the first standard one. But they pay someone to like have a standard feed, and then people can just like load it up, streamers, content creators, and go like, hey, I'm doing a watch party for the open. Here's how you watch it, which is how people will. So day 1 is on the 2nd, and day 2 is on the 3rd.
Okay, clear. And then after that is when it gets exciting. The reveal season, I don't think this is confirmed. I like soft confirmed maybe. Just looking at like the way Riot does things and the timing. On September the 5th, the reveal season should start for the new expansion, which will be releasing on the 13th. So 13th of September, patch 4.9. That will be 3 new champions and just about 60 new cards, usually, I want to say.
Yeah, so at the moment, they confirmed it via the mid patch. The video that Dave did. He basically said that they don't have the resources that they used to, and that we should. And in a Reddit thread, they did a massive AMEA. That's one of the things that I loved about Riot for that. They posted the video and like, hey, we're going to Reddit. If you want to ask some questions, we might have time to go there. I did a thread. I think I did like a 20 image like questions that people were asking that were like, hey, you missed this out. Can I have an answer? One of them was, can we see 3 champ expansions get evolved? Can we get 4 champ ones? Can we see more? And they were like, hey, with the current team size, we want to stick with 3 because quality might slip or they just don't have the resources to get more. So at the moment, the reveal season normally follows. Day 1 is the champion followers. Day 2 is the champion. Day 3 is the variety, but you get the regions that aren't getting champions.
Yeah.
They get some extra cards. They come on the day 3. You go back to a champion follower, then a champion, then a variety, then a champion follower, and then on the 12th, you will have confirmed the last champion. And then an hour after that one, you get the patch notes, which is like, hey, this is the balance changes, if there is any for the expansion, and the event pass gets confirmed, because we normally get an event pass with every expansion. So that's when all of like the cosmetics get revealed. So that week is like the best week.
Yeah, it's Christmas. It's Christmas for Runeterra. Yeah, is. And then as the patch does get released, there will also be early access for content creators. So it's always a very exciting day. And then on the 16th, there is the LOR Report Tournament.
It is. We're gonna do a bit more push on social during the reveal season, because the way it works with the thing, you have to like upload your decks before you sign up. So ideally, people sign up on the day when they want to confirm the decks. But following the same format as Worlds, it's 3 days after the expansion, playing in a tournament. Have you figured out what the meta is? Because good luck, you're in a tournament. And
I love that.
For the last one, we had Garen and Nico in the winning lineup, which is funny because Garen Nico was never a deck after that tournament, but it won the tournament. It was good.
I thought it was going to be a deck too. It felt like 4-mana Garen, man. It looked insane. And something that's not on the calendar, and I don't expect you to put this on the calendar, but on the 20th is when the new podcast episode will be released, because that is 1 week after the expansion. And then we're gonna be doing the same thing as we did here, except probably not as in-depth, because right now we only have 10 cards to look at. So when this happens, we can just look at like champions and maybe some of the decks. But we'll let you guys know. So I think we went through everything. It was a bit longer, but it is the first episode, so we're kind of just like setting the groundwork and figuring out what's good and what's not. So if you all have like any comments or improvements that we can make, maybe a name for the podcast, because I told Marshall 5 times, hey, this is the Fiddlesticks podcast, but he wouldn't agree with me. So I don't know, we need suggestions for names, so please, if you have any, leave them in the comments.
We're calling it the Elite Podcast, I told you.
Okay, look, that's not bad, but I feel like that's a little too Demasian if people know that you're in a podcast, so we'll have to think about that one. But yeah, any closing words from you? Anything you want to say?
I'm just going to say, we're going to be interesting to see if the predictions for the champions are correct. That is what, because bear in mind, we're getting this in a month. So like I said, we don't do much speculation in this. More of a, hey, look what has happened over the past month.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be much change in the meta. Maybe slight tweaks from what we see now. But the big change is going to be the expansion. So it's what 3 champions are we getting? Are we actually going to get Volibear? Are we going to get Janna? Oh, there's one thing I never mentioned. I think we're getting a LOR exclusive with every expansion this year. I think that's my personal guess. I don't know anything, but I think that is my own personal guess from a video they released in Florian Navori. They were like, oh yeah, this year is going to be big for LOR exclusive, and we've had 2 expansions, and both of them have had LOR exclusive. So I think this year we're going to have an exclusive for every single. That is my guess.
But we don't know that. So to end this podcast, Marshall, I'm going to ask you, what is your guess for that final champion? If you're thinking about it, I'll say mine. Mine is Fiddlesticks. You can only give one. Mine is Fiddlesticks because it's a Storm expansion, and the Fiddlesticks Ultimate is called Crowstorm.
Okay. And my one is going to be, I think it's going to be an LOR exclusive, and I think it's going to follow Twisted's thing, prediction. I think it's going to be a Targon one.
Okay.
And I think he thinks it's going to be Tiari. I think it'll be someone brand new.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting to see.
All right. Well, that was it. So we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.